Hello and welcome to Bible Bites. I am Pastor Michaela. Today we are exploring a story about a baby in a basket. This is the story of baby Moses that you can find in the second book in the Bible, Exodus. Moses grows up to live a long, important life of leadership, but we're going to focus just on the story of his birth. So what was going on is that the Egyptian Pharaoh had enslaved the Hebrew people, and they were becoming, more populous, and that made the Egyptian Pharaoh nervous. So in his attempt to keep the Hebrew people in their place and oppressed and under his power, he came to the conclusion that he was going to kill any Hebrew boy that was born. Now, when we're talking to our kids about this style of mass tragedy and violence, it can be difficult. Perhaps one of the ways you could think about it without getting into gory details or anything is just what are the ways that today there have been horrible tragedies of violence or oppression of people around the world and here in the United States. So we don't want to get the kids scared or go too much into gory detail, but there is something about the context of this story that can open a door for us to sort of reflect on our larger society as you see fit as a parent or caregiver. So these babies are being persecuted, and Moses' mother wants to save him. So she puts him in a basket instead of raising him among his siblings, and he floats down the river. His sister Miriam goes along with and tracks the basket's progress. And finally, the basket ends up, of all places, in the Pharaoh's palace. His daughter, the princess, draws the baby out of the water and decides to keep him and raise him as her own. Now, Miriam, the wise and loving sister that she is, pops out of the reeds and says, I have someone who could help you care for the baby. And so Moses is nursed and cared for initially by his own Hebrew mother, but then he is given back to the princess and he is raised in the palace as Egyptian royalty. Eventually, he explores sort of who he is and then comes back to free the Hebrew people. But in this story, when we think about all that happens, one of the points you could lift up is that Moses means draw out in Hebrew. His name is describes his sort of process of being discovered. So you could go around and share what names mean in your family and why names were picked and the story that goes along with it. Second option for exploring this story is that babies need so much love and care. And Moses was raised and looked after by many important women, his sister, his mother, his adopted mother, if you will. And so one of the things you could think about is how do you care for each other in your family? And how do you care for the babies and the vulnerable in your community? Maybe there is a diaper drive. Maybe there are ways you could give winter clothing and things to those in need. So how do we take care of each other? And finally, as a family, one of the best ways to explore this story is by watching the DreamWorks animated film, Prince of Egypt. It is a musical and a wonderful exploration of Moses's identity and his call to leadership, of freeing the Hebrew people, and all that goes into walking with God along the way. So I hope you have great conversations through this story, exploring sort of the reflection of society within the tech context today and the text, looking at names, looking at how we care for each other, and exploring the story through different mediums such as film. I hope you have a wonderful conversation, and I hope that you receive this blessing in love. May God's love be in our hearts, in our mouths, and in our minds. May God's love work through our hands and lead us in every way. Amen.